Animation is everywhere. It's in our movies, our games, our commercials. It's hard to go a day without seeing some form of animation or something adjacent to animation, like CGI used on live action movies. I feel like this is important because it's a multi billion dollar industry and not everyone knows what all goes into it or how the people who create such works are treated. Today, I hope to teach you a little bit more about how the animation process goes, how the treatment of workers are, and how people can find a way to go independent through this line of work. The animation process itself is rather extensive. It's not just taking some script and then plugging it into a computer. It's a rather extensive process and requires a lot of planning, coordination, scheduling, budgeting, and just making sure nothing goes wrong throughout the process. You have to set up the rough draft of the storyboard, then you got to clean up those storyboards. You have to keep cleaning it up until it looks just a little bit better and smooth and presentable. And then and that's even more difficult if you're considering CGI because you have a lot more than just what's on screen. You also have everything around it. You have so many variables to deal with in any form of animation, like lighting, movement, framing, texturing, appeal. You have so much that can't really just be done in a few minutes. Like a single episode of a television series can take several months to complete. Movies usually take at least 4 years to get done. And when it comes to the actual budgeting, there is no cheap way to go about it when it comes to creating an animated show or film because $1 million is usually the average for a single half hour of a television series. And if you're talking about movies, 100 million probably is on the low end for something that lasts an hour and a half. And so you think that with that kind of money that it would be easy to get it done even if there's some problems in the production. That's not really the case. The animation industry has the animation studios are set up so they're given one big payment to spread out throughout the entirety of the process and they have to make that work. They're not given any extensions on that. They have to make that work. So that means you got people who are trying to meet their deadlines. People are working hundreds of hours of free overtime. And in many cases, they can't really not do that because they could risk getting blacklisted, losing their jobs. And in many cases, these studios really want to get that out on time. So people will just have to deal with that, even if they do have the money to do it. They just can't say no. It's getting to the point where even successful studios just aren't going to last very long in this professional space, like Rhythm and Hughes, who after Life of Pi came out and did well, closed down not long after. And it's gotten to the point where big studios like Disney and Marvel aren't treating their visual effects artists particularly well. Many of them even consider it an abusive relationship and say that it's they dread each project that gets pitched to them. But there is some hope in throughout all this. In the day of social media and networking, we are able to reach out to people. And it's possible for animators to go independent and make something for themselves. We have platforms like YouTube and TikTok where they can post their work and gain an audience. And there's also the advent of commissions where they can start collecting commissions for private works and they can collect some revenue off of that and increase their networking, which would really help out establish a name for themselves and a reputation. So it's not perfect, but it is better than any other option that was available 20 years ago. So it is good. Sure, things aren't great in the animation industry, but there is some hope. It's a long, extensive process and it costs a lot, and the people who pay for it and commission it don't exactly appreciate it as much as they should. But there are people who do care about this line of work, and there are people who are willing to pay for it. And there are people who are willing to put up with a lot to make sure that it gets done. And maybe in the future, it should be possible to have all that done without people being taken advantage of.